history of Chicago's southeast side was dominated by the presence of steel mills, which were the major employers of many of the area's residents. The first major mill in the area opened in 1875. It was the Joseph H. Brown Mill located at 109th and the Calumet River. It eventually became Wisconsin Steel and employed close to 5,000 workers at its peak. The North Chicago Rolling Mill opened in 1880. It started with 73 acres of land, but by the time it finished growing, the mill occupied 576 acres and was known as the Southworks of United States Steel. Almost 20,000 were employed at Southwork at its peak during World War II. Other area mills included Republic Steel, LTV Steel, Acme Steel, Interlake Steel, Western Steel, Pressed Steel, Iroquois Iron, which later became Iroquois Steel, Youngstown Sheet and Tube, Valley Mold and Iron, and more. The mills and related businesses drew people to the area in search of the jobs offered by the steel industry. Beginning in the 1960s, mills began to close or move out of the area. The closing of Wisconsin Steel in 1980 and United States Steel Southworks in 1992 were critical events in the deindustrialization of the southeast side. Smaller mills hung on, but by the early part of the 21st century, the steel industry was gone. There were no operating steel mills left on the southeast side at present. An era has passed. A community has changed. Newcomers to the southeast side and children who have been born in recent years know little or nothing of the age of steel on the southeast side. But there are many still around who spent their lives working in the dangerous, dirty jobs which paid a decent wage, a wage that enabled the workers to provide for their families. It was an era when workers spent their entire life working for one company. 35 years, 40 years, even 50 years working in a steel mill. What was it like to work in a steel mill? Why did they do it? How did they put up with the poor working conditions? What other problems did they have to deal with? Sit back and listen as the workers of Chicago's southeast side steel industry tell us their stories.
Whether it was U.S. Steel, whether it was Republic Steel, whether it was Inland Steel, we all got together and we felt there was a unionism and a fraternalism to go out and organize.
With no hearing aids, we had no earplugs or anything. We would rivet on Ordbridge buckets, and the sound when you especially as a helper, you'd be the one that would be bucking the rivets. And the sound sometimes would just feel like somebody was taking a feather and sticking it in your ear, just tickling your inner ear.
They were out to break the unions back in the 1930s. 1919, 1892 at Duquesne Works of U.S. Steel in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This is all part of our history.
Yeah, it was like a brotherhood, you know. Everybody was there to work and make the job go easy. Because everybody helped out each other, you know. There was never really no problem.
This is all part of our legacy. This is all that we worked for. May God give those men rest and their souls may be in heaven for what they have done for us to make a better life for us.
See, before when you were a welder, and I was a pipe feeder, making line of pipes. Right. You wait for me until I do all the cutting or whatever, and then you come welding.
Corporate America's out to destroy the labor movement. They're out to get the unions. They're out to get our brothers and sisters.
In a rolling mill.
Okay.
And you have bars coming down on the hotbed, both sides. You got guys standing over it. You got the shearer, and he's standing maybe a half a foot away from the bars on the rolls, cutting it. And some of the steel you had to cut red hot.
Right.
We fought for this over the years in our labor movements through our negotiations.
I think I was the only pole climber. No, there's two of us. The only pole climbers that we had in the mill. And we did the pole climbing that we had in the mill.
Okay, so
there was nobody else to do the pole climbing, more or less.
We work for the common good. We work for our unions. We look to our leadership. We look to our director. We look to our international union.
This part was greasing motors and blowing them out, changing brushes.
You've got to go to Pittsburgh. You've got to be there and represent the retirees and voice your opinion.
Worked for 30 years. I was a apprentice pipe fitter.
I started to work in Southworks in 1948. I was employed, I was hired in Southworks on July the 9th of 1951. I was hired in 1959, about a year after I got out of high school.
I started in 1950, and just prior to that, I had a contract to play professional baseball, and I only used the mill for the off-season.
And I did give my whole heart support for the Steelworkers Union, and if we have to march, we're going to march.
I didn't like the job, so I always looked to improve myself. And from there, I went in the E3 department.
And we're going to march for the dignity and respect that these people work for this union.
I had a job for 30 years. I chipped, and then they made you chip with an air hammer, you know, to cut these things.
And I pray that our younger people will begin to come back to the unions and find out what these unions are all about.
Sometimes helping somebody else to do a job, or helping people where you needed it.
It was kind of difficult then, but then he was home before 12, but the thing about an hour days, and when you get home a lot of time, I didn't want to sleep, and that wakes me up.
There were good times in there. I got a lot of memories from that job, especially with my friends. We had only 2 shifts. We used to work afternoons and days, no midnight.
It was a hard, dangerous job. In summertime, you sweat like nobody's business.
First job I had was a hooker, but later on they changed that name to a chain person, because later we had ladies that were coming into the plant.
Some of these companies started to declare bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
And by a judge in a long black robe, you know, with signing away a paper, signed your benefits away in bankruptcy courts.